Hello everybody, my name is Lynn Ismael and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about how I'm scheduling my seed starts. My goal for 2024 is to start selling flower subscriptions. And for me to do that, I need to plan what crops to grow. So it's crucial for me to schedule my seed starting. Like I mentioned, this is going to be my first year. I've had 2 years of gardening, so just take my whatever I'm saying with a grain of salt. I'm just regurgitating things that I've learned and what I'm planning on implementing for 2024. So to start, there are two types of annuals. There are hardy annuals and tender annuals. Hardy annuals are plants that can tolerate frost, and depending on their zone tolerance, they can be fall planted and overwintered. In my experience in my Zone 6 garden in southwestern Ontario, I was able to fall plant red rudbeckia, dianthus, snapdragons, and foxgloves in the fall, and they actually did much better in terms of size and productivity compared to the early spring planting. But for the most part, you can plant hardy annuals in early spring as early as 8 weeks before your last frost, with some frost cover to give it a little bit of protection from the cold. Now, tender annuals are annuals that cannot tolerate frost. Typically, you can plant on the last frost. I usually wait 2 weeks after my last frost to plant my tender annuals, just to make sure that they don't languish in the cooler soil. Knowing what types of annual seeds you have will determine when you should start sowing them. Because with tender annuals, you should aim to plant 8 weeks before the last frost, while tender annuals need to be planted 2 weeks after the last frost. So let's say you want to plant snapdragons. Snapdragons are hardy annuals, and it takes about 10 weeks, 8 to 10 weeks to reach a mature size for transplant. So I'll need to figure out what 8 weeks before my last frost is, and then from that date, count 10 weeks prior to that, so I will know when I can start my snapdragons. The way I do it, just to make it easy for me, is to grab a monthly calendar. And then for each week of the calendar, I write down week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, etc. I then determine when my estimated last frost would be. In my case, it's usually the week of Mother's Day. So if I look down on my calendar, it is week 20. So knowing that my transplant date for hardy annual should be 8 weeks before the last frost, what I do is I do 20 minus 8, and that would lead me to week 12. And week 12 happens to be the week of March 17th. So that would be my transplant target date for my hardy animals, at least the first batch. So now that I've determined my transplant date, I then count 10 weeks prior to that to figure out when I should start my snapdragons. So looking at my target date, that is week 12, I then count 10 weeks prior to that. So 12 minus 10 is week 2. And week 2 happens to be the week of January 7th. So that means that around January 7th, I should be starting my snapdragons. So that's what I would be putting on my calendar. So using the same idea, let's pretend that I will be starting Zenyas anyway, so let's plan that now. With Zenyas, they want to be planted 2 weeks after the last frost so that the soil is still warm. And they need 4 weeks to reach maturity from sowing to the time when they can be transplanted in the garden. So if we go back to my calendar, My last frost date is on around week 20. So I add 2 weeks prior to that. So my target date for tender animals should be around week 22, which is around the week of May 26. From week 22, I subtract 4 weeks from that to figure out when I should be starting my zinnias. So 22 minus 4 is 18. So that means that around April 28, I should be starting my zinnias. And that's what I would put in my calendar. If you're new to gardening, I suggest grabbing Lisa Mason Ziegler's book, Cool Flowers. She's got information there on what plants are hardy to your zone that you can fall plant and overwinter, and also information on what stage you should be harvesting those flowers if cut flowers are, or growing cut flowers is what you're aiming for. It's also a good idea to make a list of all the annuals you are planning to sow and research how many weeks in advance you should be sowing them so that they're ready for transplant on your target date. And just do the calculations as I did for the Snapdragons and Zenyas for all those varieties that you want to grow. Put those dates in those calendars, and there you go. You have your seed sowing schedule. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If it did, please like and subscribe. It just helps the algorithm show people my videos and perhaps inspire them to maybe try to grow some flowers this year. So anyways, thanks for watching, and I will see you again next time. Bye.